Hey YouTube, and welcome to what is a very different video for my channel, because today I really want to talk about Yakuza Kiwami 3 and Dark Ties, something that if you're a part of the Yakuza fandom, you know of the controversies that surround this game and all the issues that have plagued this game. And I just recently finished this, today actually, as I'm recording. I got the Platinum Trophy in this game, and I really wanted to share my thoughts because I don't think I've ever been so weirdly conflicted on a game out of a series that I loved so much. And for the record, I still love the Yakuza series. I originally fell in love with this series back in 2020, was when I first started playing Yakuza 0, fell in love with the series ever since, and even though I haven't been an OG fan from the original PlayStation 2 games, I have gone back and played those games along with every other Yakuza game that currently exists. So I ain't no tourist when it comes to this franchise. Also, to anyone who's watching this that hasn't already experienced the Yakuza series, there's going to be some major spoilers here, especially for, of course, Yakuza Kiwami 3 and Dark Ties, along with the original Yakuza 3, and a little bit of Yakuza 4. So if you don't want spoilers to any of those games, go ahead and click off now, play the games yourself, play the original Yakuza 3, because I cannot in good conscience recommend playing Yakuza Kiwami 3. So, without further ado, let's get started, shall we? Now, this isn't going to be a scripted video by any means. This is going to be very much stream of consciousness, so if I end up repeating myself a bit, or just kind of getting lost in certain discussion points and stuff, I do apologize in advance. I'll try to keep things as concise as possible, but I'm just going complete stream of consciousness here. So, Yakuza Kiwami 3 and Dark Ties. For those of you that don't know, this game caught major flack right out the gate when it was announced because it did some recasting and remodeling to fan favorite characters. One of the most controversial ones we'll talk about in a bit, sorry. And if it wasn't enough with that, it's also the fact that this game cut like 60%, I think, of the original Yakuza 3's content, which is a major problem because as I was playing Yakuza Kiwami 3, the side quest called sub-stories in the Yakuza franchise, for those unfamiliar, there was only 30 sub-stories in Kiwami 3 in comparison to the original Yakuza 3's like 70 or something like that. I honestly don't remember the number. Yeah, there was only like 30. They cut over 40 sub-stories, some really important and good sub-stories at that, too. And I was nearly done with all of them before I was even halfway through the main game's story. So for the latter half of the game, I didn't even have any worthwhile side content to do. There just wasn't anything there, and it felt so empty because of it. Like, they needed more content, and there was more content that existed, but for some reason they cut all of it, which doesn't make any sense. And I'm not saying that all the sub-stories in Yakuza 3 Original were amazing and needed to stay, but massively important ones were just gone for no reason. The wrestling sub-story with Taichi and Rikia, gone. They changed it to a different kind of wrestling side story with the new content that they put for the orphanage, which I will also get to in a bit. But the actual quest that helped you bond with Rukia and everything, completely gone. The building a doghouse for Mame for the orphanage and everything with Mikio, also gone. It was done off screen. Once you become friends with the Ryudo family, the literally morning after Kiryu wakes up, the doghouse is just there and built, and that's it, nothing. It just happened off screen. All that bonding that you would have with the Ryudo family was just fucking gone. It's just not there. Which is so weird, especially when Rukia is probably one of the biggest problems with the recast that they did in this game. So, before I go too much further, let's get into the recasts, especially one of the reasons why this game is such a problem for current Yakuza fans, because if you don't know, you're about to find out. So, let's first start with Rukia. So this here is the original Rakia. And then here is Kiwami 3's Rakia. Right off the bat, this character design is so fucking bland and boring. He honestly looks no different than many of the Yakuza grunts that you're probably beating the shit out of as you play through the game. And as I'm talking about this character, please note that I hold absolutely no hate to the voice actor for Rakia in Kiwami 3. I think he did a fine job, and I do not envy the position he was given, being the recast for such a fan-beloved character out of the original Yakuza 3. But, man, going from this character that we all loved so much in the original to this is just insane. And like I said, they removed a lot of his sub-stories too. The main one involving finishing the tattoo on his back became main story, which is honestly a fine change. I'm glad that they did that, because people who missed that sub-story or didn't do it in the original Yakuza 3 story before Rakia's ultimate fate happens, it sucks. So the fact that they actually made it story relevant and you can't miss it, I do think was one of the better changes that they did. But that's the only good change that they did. Because without all those sub-stories to bond over with Rakia, I just felt nothing when he ultimately passes away in the second to last chapter of the game. You get to that point, and while Kiryu is a lot more expressive and emotional at this scene than what he was in the original game, I didn't feel that connection whatsoever, because it's weird. It's like RGG didn't even try to help people bond with this new version of Rakia. And to be fair, anyone who played the original probably was never going to accept this one as much as they did the original. But they could have at least put a step forward to it. But they just didn't. And it's so weird. And while they did keep some scenes with Rakia that I wasn't expecting them to keep, it's just asinine to me how they just ruined this character. And it's kind of a spit in the face to all classic Yakuza 3 fans. And speaking of spits to the face, let's get on to probably the biggest controversy in recent Yakuza history, if not all Yakuza history. Hamazaki, the recast, oh boy, God. So for those not aware or not in the Yakuza fandom, Hamazaki, the original one right here from the original Yakuza 3, was kind of a scummy villain and everything, did a lot of behind-the-scenes work. You never actually fight him directly or anything, you don't really get any direct confrontations with him. He's really just a character that exists mostly in cutscenes. But this one right here was fine. He was great. He had a great portrayal, and his reappearance in Yakuza 4 was touching because he actually goes through something of a redemption arc. Unlike this asshole that, God, I mean, thankfully we'll never see him get a redemption arc, but God, what the fuck was RGG thinking? Because those that don't know, Hamazaki in Remake 3, design aside, like, I definitely prefer the original's design over the remakes. Design aside, the voice actor they got is a known sexual harasser / assaultist, predator, whatever phrase you want to use. He is a known asshole for harassing and assaulting at least 2 women from my research, maybe more. I could be misremembering. And they purposely cast him because, I quote, the director from RGG said, they picked him because they wanted someone that sounded like a dirtbag, that sounded really creepy and unsettling and everything, and that this actor's portrayal, you could definitely feel that because he's an actual creep. Which is fucking insane! Like, why the fuck would you do that? Why the hell would you not just get an actor to, fucking act like that? The whole fucking point of the fucking job. It's fucking insane. And the amount of goodwill that RGG has burned with their decision to keep this asshole as the voice of Hamazaki in this game, to ignore the criticisms, to ignore literally the multiple different fan campaigns to get this guy removed from the project. It's I can't even put into cohesive words how infuriating this is. Especially to people who are longtime fans, to people who played the original Yakuza 3 back when it released in 2009 on the PS3, or to people more recently that played Yakuza 3 Remastered from the PS4 Yakuza collection. It's just a slap in the face to all fans that existed in this series. It's absolutely insane, and it doesn't make any fucking sense, dude. And what's even weirder is that they change the ending for this character, too. Because at the end of the game... Actually, do I want to talk about this now, or do I want to wait until I talk about Mine? You know what? Actually, put a pin in that. I'll get further into that when we talk about Mine. Let's get into the last recast, which, honestly, I didn't really have a problem with overall. That being... Oops. Nakahara. This was the last character to get a major change in his appearance. This is the original Yakuza 3 version. This is the new version in Kiwami. And honestly, he was fine. Like, I didn't really mind. His change is probably the one that I think most fans were overall, like, generally accepting towards. Like, obviously people still definitely prefer the original, because, I mean, this is just the one that we originally bonded with, of course, and everything. But his portrayal, his change and everything, it wasn't anything controversial. He was still essentially the same character. And you really don't bond with Nakahara like you do Rakia in the original Yakuza 3, so his change doesn't really hurt quite as much. And again, this is another character that you really just see purely through cutscenes. You get one fight against him, and then the rest of the time is just cutscenes, so you don't get any opportunities outside of those cutscenes to really establish a bigger bond with this character. So I think that's probably why a lot more people were a bit more accepting when it came to this change. Now, as far as the gameplay of Yakuza Kiwami 3, let me see if I can pull up a quick video here. 3 gameplay. Well, we'll just mute this. The gameplay and everything in this game I thought was fine. Oh, okay. Well, this gameplay I overall thought it was fine. If you know, for those unoriginal with the original Yakuza 3, if you're for some reason watching my video discussing this, the original Yakuza 3 had a reputation of being called Blockuza because the enemies just blocked all the time, and it was difficult to break those blocks to actually do damage and kill them. So every time you got into a random fight, it just became such a slog. It was so tedious to go through it every time. Even playing on the easier difficulties, they still blocked all the time. And even in Kiwami 3, they honestly block quite a bit, but in Kiwami 3, they at least give you a bit more options to break guards than what they did in the original Yakuza. So overall, I think the gameplay change is mostly a plus. The other downside that there is to it, however, is that this game is insanely easy. Even playing on the hardest difficulty, it is very easy to blow through this game, and Dark Ties for that matter. Like, I don't know what it is with RGG making these games easier in terms of, like, the combat and everything with the recent titles. It's weird. Like, sure, I'm not someone that personally plays these games for overwhelming difficulty or whatever, but at least, you know, don't let it be a cakewalk. Like, as much as this game is a power fantasy, it doesn't feel as good if you don't beat something that, you know, feels like it put up at least a decent challenge. So it's weird. Like, why is everything so easy in this game? But yeah, overall the gameplay is fine and everything. There's still plenty of mini games to do in this. Although strangely enough, you can't play mini games with like all the characters that exist. Like out of the changes that they put into this game, I would have thought they maybe would have let you play like more mini games outside of the new ones that they introduced with like the kids from the orphanage and everything. Because like you can go to karaoke and stuff with Haruka, but you can also go with Rikia. You can go with Tsubasa, one of the new side characters that they introduced, and one of the new content that they added in the game, which I'll discuss in just a moment. And you can also sing with Majima if you're in Kamurocho. You can't sing with him when you're in Okinawa. That's where this location is. Sorry, forgot that for a second. I kind of wish they would have added more. Like they added like the ability to play games and stuff with Nakahara and Mikio, especially since you don't get those opportunities to bond with those characters really, because they don't have their fucking sub stories in this game. I feel like it would have been a good choice to at least have added them to mini games to play. Like, you know, go golfing with Nakahara, you go bowling with Mikio. And one of the weird things that they did is that they did add Rikia to karaoke, but he doesn't get a song to sing. So it's like, what the hell is the point in being able to invite him to the karaoke? It doesn't add anything. It doesn't make any sense. And there's kind of a similar problem with this in the Dark Ties expansion as well. Because Mine, he only gets one song to sing in karaoke, which, granted, great performance from the VA, but it sucks that he only gets one song. And granted, Dark Ties overall is just kind of half-baked. But you can also invite Kanda, one of the other main villains from Yakuza 3 and one of the central characters of Dark Ties. You can invite him to karaoke as well. But, again, he doesn't have a song either, so it's like, what the hell is the point? Why bring these characters that don't have songs to karaoke when they don't have anything unique to sing? And I think that problem exists. Can you invite Tsubasa to karaoke? You might be able to invite her, too. And I don't think she has any songs either, unless if I'm completely forgetting right now. But yeah, it's just weird. And then, outside of gameplay and everything, it's just unfortunate that they cut so many sub-stories, because while I do overall like the gameplay in this better than the original Yakuza 3, there's just less to do in it, because of all the cut content. So, there's a combat system that I like better than the original, but there's infinitely less for me to do than what there was in the original. And it's just confounding. Now, speaking of at least some of the new stuff that they brought in, one of the biggest things is Bad Boy Dragon, which, oh boy, that's definitely a name. I'll see if I can just skip ahead to like the actual like combat stuff. So you get introduced to this character right here, Tsubasa. She's completely new to Kiwami 3. She wasn't in the original. Kiryu is friends with her dad. I believe his name was Mita, who is one of Kiryu's teachers for his new combat style in Kiwami 3, which I forgot to talk about, I just realized. Kiryu gets a new combat style that uses a bunch of Okinawan-based weaponry and everything, and it's fine. I personally didn't really care for the style too much, and honestly, it made the game even easier than what it already was, so I honestly didn't really utilize it, like, at all, really. So, yeah, the new style, it was cool and everything, but it really didn't feel necessary being included, honestly. But anyway, back to what I was discussing. There's this game, Bad Boy Dragon, which replaces, I think, the Hostess Club minigame from the original Yakuza 3, which personally, I've never really cared for any of the Hostess Club minigames from any of the Yakuza titles. Like, I didn't really care for it in Zero, although Zero was probably the one that I cared the most for. I didn't care for it in Kiwami 2, I didn't care for it in Yakuza 4, I don't care for it in Yakuza 5. It's just not a series of sub-stories or activities that I ever really care to do. And while I do think Bad Dragon overall is better, this also just gets immensely fucking tedious and boring to a point. Because this is pretty much it. You just drive to different warehouses, fight a bunch of different guys. You get to one big final brawl at the end with like the leader or whatever. You beat them and you move on. It's weird. Like the story for this sub story, like it's not bad. Like it's a decent story. It's pretty heartwarming. I felt some emotions going through it and everything. But it's just over so fucking fast. Like, you get introduced to the villains of this sub-story, like, right away, and then, like, the very first mission you have, you already take out one of the leaders. It goes by that fast. It's like, okay, like, why? If it's gonna go by that fast, why even bother? Like, again, I enjoyed this more than the Hostess Club minigames, which I thought were too long and way too tedious. But this is just short and somehow still too tedious. I don't know how that fucking works. It doesn't make any sense. And yeah, when it comes to the new content in Kiwami 3, this is one half of the major new things that they added. The other being the stuff with the orphanage, which I'll bring up right now. One moment. Life at Morning Glory, which is the name of Kiryu's orphanage. This is just like a 1-minute video. But in the original Yakuza 3, a lot of what people had to love about it was the fact that you got to bond with Kiryu's adopted kids in the orphanage. And in this game, they heavily expand upon that, giving you new mini-games and everything, and new ways to actually, like, connect and bond with the kids, which I think is a fantastic idea, even though this is really just a bunch of rehashed minigames from prior Yakuza titles, like Yakuza 7 and 8, along with Ishin and stuff, because it's just reusing, like, the quiz minigame and everything from Yakuza 7. It reuses the farming minigame from Ishin, and it reuses a little bit of, like, the Tomodachi Life minigame-esque stuff from Yakuza Infinite Wealth. So it's just, it's cool and everything. I enjoyed it. This is probably, like, the least problematic new thing that they did add to this game, I feel. At least to the main game. Because otherwise, everything else, like, the sub-stories in this game, a lot of them are really quick. Like, you talk to one person, like, you go to a new place, you fight, like, one dude or, like, a group of dudes, you see the resolution to it, and then it's done. A lot of the sub-stories go by so fast. There's no long sub-stories in this game, which sucks. Especially when you consider that in the original Yakuza 3, we had probably one of the best sub-stories in the entire franchise with the Cafe Alps murder investigation. That sub-story was so fucking good, and it's completely gone from Kiwami 3. For no real fucking reason, either. Like, I can't think of a single reason of why they would remove it from this game. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense for a number of the removed side stories from this game. Speaking of side stories, one of the ones that I think people really resonated with was a side story with Kiryu and a trans woman, accepting her choices and everything, and telling her, like, you have nothing to be ashamed of with, like, you're changing everything. You don't need to, like, let other people get you down and all that. Like, it was a really heartwarming sub-story, especially for people within the trans community, that for some reason is just not here. It's just gone. And that is really a stab in the heart, because I don't care what you say, if people are going to call it woke or whatever. This was a story that originally came out back in 2009, long before a lot of people were discussing trans rights and everything like we do now with the current political climates and everything. So this game was, at least from my perspective, the original Yakuza 3, it was a little bit ahead of its time when it came to discussing trans visibility and a portrayal of trans people in media, at least from my perspective. Forgive me if I'm wrong. I'm not personally trans. I don't really know anyone that's a part of the trans community. If you're someone that has, please let me know if I'm right in what I'm saying or if I'm a bit wrong. I don't mean any offense to the trans community. I love them dearly. And yeah, it just really hurt because this sub story was one of the ones that really helped show you just the kind of person Kiryu is. Because Kiryu is like the perfect dude. Like, sure, he makes mistakes and everything, but goddamn, his heart is made of 100% carrot gold, man. He is one of the absolute sweetest men in all of video games. And losing that kind of sub-story to see that side of him hurts in a way that I can't accurately describe, especially not as someone who is a part of the trans community. So I can only imagine the pain trans people, a part of the Yakuza community, felt when they saw that this sub-story was removed from the game. It's just crazy. It doesn't make any sense to me why they would cut so much content and why they would put such bare bone effort into the new content that they did put in. Speaking of bare bones effort, let's get into the second half of this package, shall we? With Yakuza 3 Dark Ties. Now, this experience overall, I actually liked. I actually very much enjoyed it. Even though it is way too fucking short and is way too fucking bare bones. And I'm saying this, I still enjoyed it even with its controversial ending, which we're about to talk about it here in a second. So, Yakuza Kiwami 3 Dark Ties is a special new story edition to Yakuza 3, where you get to play as the main antagonist of the main game, Mine. You get to play his story, him entering into the Yakuza crime life, and seeing him establish his massive respect and admiration for the chairman of the Tojo clan at the time, Daidoji. And overall, I thought it was fine. I thought it was a pretty good addition. There was some weird stuff like the Konda damage control thing, which, as funny as it was, and some of the side quests that you get out of it have some really fucking funny moments in them. I'm not going to spoil those moments. It's also kind of weird because Konda is literally a sexual predator. Like, when you meet him in Dark Ties, he literally just got out of jail for raping someone. And as soon as he gets out of jail and is roaming around Kamurocho, he almost immediately rapes another woman. So it's like, why? Why would... Like, I know Konda is important to Mine's story, unfortunately, because Konda is Mine's in to the Yakuza crime syndicate. But why give him such a big role in this story when... Especially with the damage control and improving Konda's reputation and everything, it feels so fucking scummy. Especially when you remember the controversies already with Hamazaki's new voice actor. It feels even worse. The fact that you have a whole side activity to do all about improving a different sexual predator's reputation. Which, granted, at least this one is purely in-game. Like, there's no problems with Konda's voice actor, as far as I know. Like, at least this one is purely just in-game, at the very least, and not real life, like some asshole. But it's just so fucking weird. And outside of that, Dark Ties, its story and everything is so fucking small. Like, if you were to focus purely on the story and ignore the side content, you could breeze through the story in like 2 hours, which is by far the shortest story expansion probably to any Yakuza game, other than, I guess, Kiwami 2's little story expansion with the Majima bits that they sprinkled in between, because that was only like three small little segments, so I guess maybe that's actually the shortest. But this isn't very far behind. And as far as like content that they give, like, there's a good amount of content to play. Well, no, not really. They give us like slightly below average amount of content to play. Like, there's a bunch of like random things that you can do to like help people and all that, which again is all to improve Konda's image. There's like 12 like actual side stories that you can do, and there's this new arena mode that they added, which I'll pull up a video here. Which overall it was fine, but it gets really tedious, especially when especially playing as Mine, because for Dark Ties, they really did not give Mine a very diverse moveset. So going through these long gauntlets and multiple like arena fights and everything, fighting people with Mine, it's just really, it gets really boring, unfortunately, kind of fast, because this character just doesn't have a super diverse moveset. And the problem is, he also doesn't have a lot of upgrades that you can apply to him either. All of Mine's stat upgrades and stuff, all of that is gotten with money. Unlike in Kiryu's half of the story, where some of them are bought with money and the rest of them are bought with completion points that you get for doing various side activities in the main game. In this, you also get points and everything for completing like side activities to like the Konda damage control stuff, but you also get money, which Mine rakes in the fucking cash when it comes to Dark Ties. Like, it is like Yakuza 0 levels nearly of getting absurd amounts of money in this game. And they don't make Mine's abilities cheap to buy either, but even then, I finished Dark Ties with over 60 million yen in my pocket and literally nothing to spend it on. So money is not a problem in this, and I am kind of sad about that, because, well, I do think it is good to have plenty of money for people that, want to, do whatever they want and the free roam and everything. I feel like they just needed more to Mine's skill tree and everything. More to buy, more for him to do, more moves to pull off, more combos and everything. Just overall more to spend the money with, or honestly, just even make the things even more expensive, because money is so goddamn easy to come by with Mine, which makes sense given his character and role in the main story and everything. Like, it makes a lot of sense as to why he's able to make so much money so quickly. But it harms the flow and the progression that you feel when playing through the Dark Ties story, in my opinion. And like I said, I did enjoy playing this and everything, but it just grows, it really shows how thin it is by the time you reach the end of it. And it's just kind of there, honestly. Like, as cool as it is, and as nice as it was getting to see more of Mine, who is probably one of, if not the best villain in the Yakuza franchise, it's just, there's almost nothing really here for him, sadly. Like, they made this whole other mode for him and everything, and gave him, like, these unique mechanics and all that, but there's just not enough there. It's like RGG made this little side story for Mine, but then didn't know what to do with it. Because, like I said, the main story you can blow through so fucking quick. It is obscenely fast how fast you can get through Dark Ties' story, because, like, the main game of Kiwami 3 is 12 chapters, just like the original Yakuza 3. 12 chapters long. It should take you roughly, like, 30, maybe 40 hours to beat the main game if you aren't getting distracted by a bunch of side content. And in this, you can finish it in, like, 2 hours. Like I said, there's just not that much there. It's insanely short. And I just don't know why they wouldn't put more in, especially when they've put so much effort into other spin-off games like Like a Dragon, Gaiden, Man Who Lost His Name, or Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii, both of which are smaller spin-off games that aren't as long as the normal mainline games, but at least both of those games last like 6 to 8 hours, which is 4 times longer than what it takes to finish Dark Ties. It's just it doesn't make sense. Nothing about this makes sense, and it's why I wanted to make this kind of video discussing this. Because I don't know who the fuck Kiwami 3 and Dark Ties is really meant for at the end of the day. Like, the way to improve it is obvious. Like, add more sub-stories to the main game, add more worthwhile side content to the main game. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Add more story to Dark Ties, or better yet, just have Dark Ties as a completely separate thing. I would have paid money to just have Mine have his own Gaiden / Pirate Yakuza-like experience as his own separate thing, rather than being tied to Kiwami 3. Like, I would have paid for a completely separate and full game completely focused on Mine, because like I said, he's one of the greatest characters, one of the greatest villains in the Yakuza franchise. I lost my train of thought again. I'm so sorry. Like I said, this is completely unscripted and I'm just going off the top of my head here. There's so many simple little things that could have really improved both of these games that for some reason just don't exist. It just didn't happen. Like, as much as Kiwami 3 added and Dark Ties added, they still feel so fucking hollow and empty. And ultimately, these games, this Kiwami 3 and Dark Ties' existence is pointless at the end of the day because of the ending that they give it. So at the end of Kiwami 3 and Dark Ties, massive spoiler warnings here, by the way, if you haven't already been aware with all my other spoilers that I've discussed thus far. At the end of the game of the original Yakuza 3, Mine sacrifices himself and takes down one of the other central villains, Andre Richardson. They fall off the top of a very high hospital building in front of Kiryu and Daigo's eyes. And it was a very dramatic moment. You really felt something for it, because Mine, despite everything he's done, he's really not that bad of a guy deep down, and you can sense that even as you end the game, even before we got the expansion with him and Dark Ties and everything. Like, there was more to his character that easily could have been expanded upon, which is why I think they did Dark Ties to begin with. And Mine was such a beloved character that it's obvious why that they would, make a side story involving him. Heck, people loved Mine's reappearance in Like a Dragon Ishin because he got to be a good guy in that story. He was an ally, and it was fantastic. So, what's the change then? Well, this is kind of something that's been happening in a lot of modern Yakuza games, where a lot of series deaths that happened in the old games get retconned. Now, for those unfamiliar, in Yakuza 3, Yakuza 3 probably had the most death retcons so far out of the entire series. Because there's Lao Kai Long, who gets shot in the center of his forehead. He's fine. He lives as a weapon dealer in Yakuza's 7 and 8. There's Kashiwagi, who gets fucking gunned down by a fucking, Gatling gun on a fucking helicopter. He's fine. He's a bartender in Yakuza 7 and 8. Just multiple deaths retconned, and now the latest one being Mine. His death has now also been retconned. It's revealed at the end of both Kiwami 3's ending and Dark Ties ending that Mine surprisingly survived his fall off the end of the hospital at the end of the original story. He fucking fell into a bush, and that apparently was enough to save his fucking life. And then he got picked up by someone that he referred to as the Fixer. I'm not sure if that's a completely new character to the franchise or not, or if that's someone tied to the Daidoji faction, which was introduced in Yakuza 6 and further expanded upon in Yakuza Infinite Wealth and Gaiden and stuff. I don't know if he's tied to that or not. It wasn't really explicitly said, and I didn't really look into it that far. But yeah, they retconned Mine's death, to have him live, which I don't know why, because like we are so far into the Yakuza timeline that bringing Mine back in any meaningful capacity in the story in the future just doesn't feel like it would make any sense whatsoever. Especially with like jeez, I'm struggling to even like put this out because not only do they change the ending for Mine, but they also change the ending for Hamazaki. At the end of the original Yakuza 3, this Hamazaki stabs Kiryu in revenge for ruining his life and his standing in the Yakuza syndicate. And then he gets arrested and carted to jail, which you then meet him again in Yakuza 4 when you play as Saejima. Hamazaki is one of the characters that helps Saejima break out of prison, get back to Kamurocho, and he eventually washes up on the beach in front of Kiryu's orphanage, and he kind of like has this like little redemption arc to Kiryu, despite the fact that he stabbed him at the end of the game. Kiryu was still willing to hear him out and like let him into the orphanage space and everything, thankfully while all the other kids were out. So that's just completely gone from Kiwami 3, because in Kiwami 3, Mine comes out from the shadows and stops Hamazaki from going forward with stabbing Kiryu in the end. And then he joins Mine and whoever the fixer is as being some agent of the shadows or whatever, which completely throws off the story going in the future, because now the story that's in Yakuza 4 doesn't work, because Hamazaki was one of the key figures to pushing that story through, but now he's not in jail to meet Saejima to push that story forward. And also with Mine still in existence, that also feels like it just throw things in a weird kind of whack. And going back to what I said originally when I started talking about the ending, about how this game, how Kiwami 3 and Dark Tide's existence ultimately means nothing, is that the director of these games and RGG have already stated that Yakuza Kiwami 4 or any other future remakes of the PS3 titles aren't going to happen. These just aren't things that are going to happen. So it's like, you changed the story for these characters in this game for absolutely no fucking reason. We're not going to get any expansion on this in the future. Like, they said it out of their own mouths. Like, we're not going to do a Kiwami 4 or anything like that. So, like, why the fuck bother changing the ending in the first place? Like, sure, maybe having Mine live, surprise, surprise, at the end could work or whatever, and, you know, he just exists, but we never hear of him again. Kind of like a lot of other main Yakuza villains, like Kuze from, I'm starting to forget names now. But there's a lot of main Yakuza villains from prior in the series that, you know, go to jail or whatever, and we know get released and everything at some point, but they're just not brought up in the story again. They just live their lives normally as civilians or whatever. We just never see them again. And you know what? That kind of thing could be fine for Mine, I suppose, if they just left it at that. But they didn't. For some reason, they felt the need to change probably one of the most important bits to the original Yakuza 3's ending, because it set up Yakuza 4 and a lot of the story going forward. Which is why I don't know who this game was made for, because fans of the Yakuza series already as it exists hate this game. They do not like this game in the slightest. Like, it's just a slap in the face to fans. And any new fans that come into this game are just going to be met with unyielding hate for all the decisions that RGG made with this game, between casting a sexual predator for one of the characters, with all the cut content and recasting of fan-loved characters and everything, and just bare bones side content all over in both the original game and Dark Ties. So, like, I can't imagine this game being super appealing to new fans, and it's also not anywhere appealing for old veteran fans. So it's like, why does this game exist? What was the point of this? And that's why I wanted to make this video, because after finishing the game, I don't know how to fucking feel anymore when it comes to this franchise. Like, this is a major black stain, not only to the Yakuza franchise, but onto RGG's reputation as a whole. And it sucks, because, like, I did enjoy the stuff with the orphanage and the kids and Kiwami 3. I still enjoyed Yakuza 3's story, because the story overall is still there. The core and heart of Yakuza 3's story still exists in Kiwami 3. It's just some of it's been gutted. And I still enjoy the original Yakuza 3. And I enjoyed the new content that Dark Ties brought, and being able to play as Mine, the first time that you've ever had one of the series villain in the central protagonist role in any spin-off or mainline game. That's fucking cool, and I wish they would do more of that. Like, I want them to do more, like, solo spin-off games for side characters that we just don't get to see as much anymore. Like Akiyama, Saejima, freaking Tanimura. Hell, I'll even take a fucking Mr. Baseball dude from Yakuza 5. I forgot his name all of a sudden. Shinada, that's it. I'll even take a spin-off game purely about him. But, yeah, I guess what my point is, and what I'm saying about all this is, just, why? Why did this happen? And, more importantly, what the hell is going to happen to this franchise that I fell in love with going forward into the future? Because Yakuza Infinite Wealth, while I did enjoy the game, it also has its fair share of problems in terms of writing and pacing and the story. Pirate Yakuza was a silly spin-off game and everything that didn't take itself too seriously. Gaiden, I really enjoyed, but I know a lot of people have problems with it as well. A lot of modern Yakuza titles just are getting all these issues recently. And I don't know if it's because of the change in leadership. Assumedly it is. I don't know if the problem lies solely with RGG, or if it's also to blame with Sega, because Sega has also fucked over the series in the past. It's just, why did this happen? Just why? And who was this ultimately supposed to be for? Because I don't know. And I'm scared for this franchise going forward into the future, because Yakuza, despite only being a fan of this series since 2020, is one of the series that I regard as one of my all-time favorites of all existence. Like, this is in my top 3 video game series of all time. I love this goddamn franchise. And I just don't know where the hell RGG and Sega is going to be taking this series in the future, because it just doesn't look good anymore. Especially with this, especially with how bad some of the writing has been in the more recent titles before this one, and also with the spin-off titles like Judgment and all the stuff going on with Yagami's actor and everything. The fact that he's probably not going to be back for another game and all that. It's heartbreaking to me, and I just keep repeating myself, who is this game for? Why did this happen? And ultimately, where the hell are we going in the future?